Welcome to Catalyst for Healing. I'm here with Hufsa Mod. She is a licensed clinical social worker and specializes in dialectical behavioral therapy. It's otherwise known as DBT, which is what we're going to talk about today. So, Hufsa, it's so great to have you. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Hufsa. I'm certified in DBT and also working on my certification in EMDR. I've been working in the field for over 12 years. I specialize particularly in severe cases of mental health and substance use, and also since I'm a late neurodivergent former tech professional, I also work with corporate and tech professionals on imposter syndrome and workplace trauma. So, yeah.
Yes, you have and you do comedy as well. You
Yes.
have a different variety of things that you're involved in. So,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what your story is and what brought you into becoming a therapist and how DBT made a difference in your life.
Okay, yeah. So, I would say, let's start with what, 10, 15 years ago. It was a dark night. I was in my therapist's office. I was crying. I was lonely. I was hopeless, and I just felt so alone. And I told her this, and she said, "Oh, you should do stand-up comedy." And I was like, "That's a very strange thing to say. Why?" She's like, "'Cause you're so funny." I was like, "You find our sessions funny?" Like, I thought you're supposed to help me with my delusions, not create new ones. And then she laughed, and I was like, ah. But she framed it as like, well, you're a stigma smasher, right? Like, I fight against the stigma in mental health. This is another way to do it. So that's how I embarked in the comedy world. And also, I will say that was terrible advice. Like, that's beyond a therapist's scope. It was very traumatizing. The comedy world is very, very mean. However, I can't say anything because I now tour internationally and I'll be performing in Vancouver, Canada next month. So just don't do it.
You
Even
ended
though
up
it worked
loving
out.
it.
Even though it worked out, don't do it. Okay, therapist, don't do it. So
Well,
yeah.
you were talking about you're originally from Pakistan and how mental health, the stigma. Talk a little bit about the cultural part
Yeah.
of that and having been, really depressed and what that was like.
Yeah. So I definitely have lived experience with like pretty severe mental health. I was diagnosed in 18 years old, and my family didn't know what to do. This was 20 years ago. No one knew what to do. Like,
Yeah.
you never even talked about the word mental health. It was just mental illness. And so my parents had reached out to our extended family, and they said, well, mental illness isn't real. It's just bad parenting. And so my parents had to reach out to NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, in order to get the support because there was so much stigma. That being said, after many years, I ended up doing a TEDx talk about my recovery called Relapse as Part of Recovery. And my family saw it, and as they got to know me and understand like the illness better, they understood that, oh, Hufsa gets sick sometimes, and they're actually very supportive
Hmm.
of my ventures. And even though they're very upset that I switched from engineering to social work, in the end, they're like, "Yeah, you're gonna do whatever you want, and we're happy for you." So,
Good. I'm glad that ended up being supportive, but I can imagine those people from India and Pakistan are going to want you to be in engineering. Okay, so you transferred it in college, your major?
I finished my degree at Harvey College in small engineering college where I was in a
Oh,
class of 150 people. So quite small, very rigorous and hard to get into. Whenever I talk to people, because most people haven't heard of Harvey Mudd, but it's very rigorous and hard to get into. So if I want to impress someone, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I went to school. It starts with HARV," and everyone would be like, "Harvard," and I'd be like, "Ah, Harvey Mudd, but very close."
that's a good one.
And
I
so,
like that.
there's actually a psychological study that show like if you kind of impress someone, even if it's not true, the impressingness still stays.
See, there's that.
But
I love it.
and then yeah, I had after college just very rough times. Like I really didn't fit in the engineering tech world. I ended up just doing odd jobs like tutoring, running an eBay business. It gets weirder until my mom told me like, "You're not doing anything with your life. Go volunteer at NAMI." And then that's whenever
Interesting.
I met these people who are like, "Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with having mental illness." And I was like, "Really?" And I took a class called peer to peer where it was like, "Oh my God, lots of people have mental illness and they're very functional. It's okay."
Yeah.
And I felt better, became a teacher for that class. And then I was someone in the class said you'd be a great peer mentor. And I was like, that's quite different from chemistry, but sure. And then that embarked me on this field to where I'm currently a licensed therapist.
Wow, that's what brought you into the field. Okay, we didn't
Yeah.
talk about that part of your story. That's super interesting.
Yeah, I totally forgot. I have terrible memory. In fact, why am I here? I don't remember.
Was part of the depression just being in a field that didn't fit you? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know because it's sort of like, you mean after college?
mhm.
Oh, most definitely. I cannot put into words my so when I did get fired from this tech job at this battery company. And my boss when he fired me said, "We hired you because you went to Harvey Mudd, but clearly that was a mistake. You ruined the reputation of your college." And I was like,
Oh my
"Damn,
gosh,
that's
that's harsh.
like I can't put into words how low my self-esteem
Oh,
was
wow.
that when I did my first peer mentor job, people are like, "You're so smart." I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm so stupid."
Mm.
Like, I literally thought that I was stupid until, like, kinda late in the field, and people kept saying I was smart, and I was like, "Wait a second." And now people probably think I should not think I'm as smart as I am, but, that's okay. I definitely have a history of people saying mean things in 6th grade. So I was bullied, right, when I moved to, Irvine with these people. I walked in class and I was voted in the slam book, dumbest and ugliest girl in school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They have that category?
Well, each page had one. So there was dumbest, and then they wrote my name, and then ugliest, and they wrote my name.
I mean, how would the yearbook even allow that? It's
Well,
horrible.
it's not a yearbook, it's a slam book. Do you know what that is?
Oh, I don't know what a slam book
Okay,
is.
because
I'm
I
a
don't
lot
know
older
when it
than you.
popped up, but it's sort of like you put at the name like most likely to go to Harvard, or like, prettiest or more popular, and then they
Yeah.
have the mean ones, and all the students will vote by writing the person's name that they think fits under that. And so that's how I got voted dumbest and ugliest, 2 separate pages.
How?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you. Wow.
That's okay. It doesn't bother me anymore. It's kind of wild, like, but it's sort of like, right, those core memories early on just kind of stay with you, especially if they get reinforced, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like, I think when that boss said that to me, I went back into 10-year-old Hufsa thinking I was stupid. And it just kind of like brings out a part of you, right? Like, that's a lot of like what EMDR works on, even
Yeah.
DBT, internal family systems, as we're Russian dolls. And that little part of me that was traumatized at age 10 would come out periodically.
Yeah.
But I think that part's healed. I'd say I'm pretty smart, and most people would like me to not be as smart as I am. I can be a little critical or point out things that they don't want to know. So yeah.
Now you're using the smarts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about DBT. I know you could talk about EMDR. I've done an episode on that
Oh yeah.
earlier with Emily Sellis, if anyone wants to watch that, because that's a powerful modality.
Yeah.
But I think DBT is something people aren't as aware of, but it's, I think, so powerful. And it's really utilized a lot in groups in terms of for hospitalization. I think the groups are amazing, but how did you get into working with DBT? And
Yeah. So the first encounter I had with DBT was when I was in this outpatient program. And long story short, a lot of people who teach DBT in those programs do not know what DBT is. They're not certified in it.
Mhm.
They don't have training in it. They just print out a handout from therapist aid and just kind of walk the person through it. So unfortunately, my first experience was being bombarded by a bunch of acronyms because DBT is really big on that, right?
They are very big on acronyms.
Yeah, it's like distract with accepts, spelled out. Each one has like, activity, contributing, whatever. Let's see, there's Dearman, Dearman, which is about like talking to people and negotiating. And then there was FML. Oh wait, no, that was in my head. So was WTF, as I'm just like learning all these acronyms. I was so irritated. I remember telling my friend about it, and his wife is a psychologist who later has become one of like a leading DBT clinician in New York. And so like I remember at the time he's like, "No, DBT is really good." I was like, "No, it's just stupid. How am I supposed to remember this?" And then later I became a therapist in my workplace because I said you have to train me in more things. And they're like, fine. They sent me to this 3-day DBT training. It was not the Linehan Institute. I personally didn't know any better. I was just like, okay, you're paying for it. I will go. And it was like, wow, this is a really, really, really good modality that is terribly explained for like, I would say 2 or 3 reasons why people don't know more about DBT. So
Yeah. So why don't we go into what DBT is? Maybe can you explain
yeah.
to the average person that might know nothing about it?
Okay. Okay. I got this. Okay. This is the original metaphor. You will not find it. I asked ChatGPT and AI, like Gemini, I'm like, what would you do? And none of them had what I have. Okay. This is the OG. This is why therapists are better than AI. Okay.
You were
Hands down.
telling me about this earlier.
Yeah, for context, I wrote an article about like boiling DBT down called
Yeah.
DBT Explain Like I'm Five. And then I asked these AIs to do it without looking at it and compared. I'm the best. Okay. But anyway, so is all therapists. You can do it, therapists. So DBT, I'm going to break it down by explaining 4 parts of what it is and an analogy for it. And then the last thing is I'm going to explain like what is the overall message. So first and foremost, DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. I'll explain the dialectical, but first I want to go over the analogy. Is that there's 4 parts. There's mindfulness, there's distress tolerance, which means you know, well, actually, let me explain. Mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotional regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. So those are the 4, and I'm going to explain. Mindfulness, about enjoying the present moment, staying out of the stuff that's in your head, which is usually in the past or the present. The past makes us depressed. Present make future
Future.
makes us
Yeah.
anxious. Present is the best. And then distress tolerance is just we're all gonna have awful times, right? We're all gonna feel awful at some point, and it's just about bearing it because that awfulness is time limited. You're not gonna feel like angry for your entire life. It's gonna be time limited, ideally. And then let's see, did I do emotional regulation is what you do in between the distresses to get you more prepared for the next distress and also reduce the amount of distresses you're going to have. And then interpersonal effectiveness is just getting along better with people and also understanding who is a good person, who's not, how do you treat people well, how do you be treated well, that sort of thing. So that makes sense before I do the analogy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the way I like to think about it is it's waves, right? So we are in the ocean, we're just vibing or whatever, and a wave is going to hit us no matter what. Like waves happen in the ocean, happens to everyone, regardless of whether you have mental health, mental illness, substance use, whatever, waves are going to hit. And so when that wave hits us, it's going to hurt, it's going to put us underwater. That's the distress tolerance. That's where we have to learn the skills to kind of hold our breath and come back above water. But like this wave is going to hit us no matter what, and it's going to hurt us, but it will go away. So, emotional regulation is what do you do in between the waves? What do you do to kind of strengthen your swimming? What do you do to be more aware of when those waves are coming? And like, what do you do to just be able to weather those waves and make those waves come less? The next thing is mindfulness. And that's about just chilling in the ocean, you know?
Yeah.
It's about don't think about that past wave, don't think about that future wave. Just vibe, have a good time. You can learn to build more awareness to see when the waves are coming, but it's just about enjoying life and staying out of your head. And then interpersonal effectiveness, I think, is making relationships with like nearby boats that could throw you like a little tube or whatever, or maybe like buddies with the lifeguard so he can watch you and make sure that he helps you if you're going down under. And it's all about just kind of getting along better with people.
Yeah. That's a good description. I really like that.
Okay. And so I gave you the 4 parts, but I didn't explain dialectical. And this is the real reason why I didn't understand what DBT was important, is because no one explains what a dialectical is unless they're very trained in DBT, because that's the whole point. So a dialectical means that you are holding 2 ideas in your head that seem opposite, right? So, like, I'll give an example of a young woman in love with someone who's probably not good for her. So she kind of pulls between, like, oh, but I love him. Oh, but I hate him. Oh, I love him. I hate him. Where it's like, okay, a dialectical is understanding both and being like, he has good qualities and good qualities and bad qualities. And the reason that this is important is that whenever we have more nuanced thinking versus black and white or all or nothing thinking, it helps us with better judgment. It makes us more emotionally regulated because we're not pulled from this to this to this to this. And it helps us understand situations better, like ourselves and that person, where this young woman might be able to gain some clarity on whether it's more of a good or a bad and whether it's time to leave or not. So that's really like the very important thing is that when we complexify our thinking, whenever we have nuanced thinking, it just makes us able to tolerate distress better. It makes us be able to regulate our emotions better. It helps us be more mindful and it helps us get along with people better.
I love that. It covers so many things. And tell us a little bit about Marsha Linehan, who developed DBT. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
love her book because she talks about her own story and then she starts developing this and it's part of her own healing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So Dr. Marsha Linehan, she is a wonderful, wonderful psychologist and researcher, and she herself has lived experience with borderline personality disorder. And she didn't tell anyone until she got famous, and there was like undeniable evidence, like this works. And then she's like, by the way, she dropped that ball. She's like, hey, I have BPD, and everyone's like. Psh, but, like, they couldn't go backwards and judge her for it because it was
Yeah.
like, "Well, you just endorse all my work as well." And I think, unfortunately, borderline personality disorder can be very stigmatized.
Yeah. But this
And
does work
yeah.
really well with BPD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I've definitely used it with, I've definitely had I know when I worked in community mental health, supposedly, almost all of my caseload had borderline. I don't know if those were accurate diagnoses or whether they were like, some people kind of see like, oh, you're a difficult person, you must have BPT. But at the end of the day, I worked with a lot of people who were diagnosed with that.
Maybe
And yeah.
explain what that is. People don't know.
Oh, borderline?
Borderline person.
Okay, so let me see if I can understand. So, borderline personality disorder is basically where a person is really stuck in this black and white thinking that it is very, very difficult to see nuances. It's very difficult to see in the gray. And as a result of being in this black and white thinking, they have trouble with regulating emotions.
Yeah.
They can frequently get angry. Sometimes they have suicidal thoughts. Sometimes they self harm. Sometimes they self sabotage. A lot of the core issues of borderline is this fear of abandonment, these interpersonal challenges, this kind of dealing with the wrong people or being dealt with the wrong person or being the wrong person or like things like that. And so I do want to clarify that there's no one typical person with borderline. I know that other terms used that's a noun. I don't like that. I'm not going to do that. As there are 9 diagnostic criteria, and you need 5 in order to make the diagnosis. So in theory,
And
2
everyone's
people.
on a spectrum. I mean,
Yeah,
just like just right. It
yeah,
depends on the symptoms and how
yeah,
extreme versus more mild.
yeah.
Mm.
And there's actually research suggesting, or actually no, showing that with 6 years of treatment, continuous treatment, something like I'm trying to remember, like 60 something or more percent of people with borderline no longer meet the criteria for borderline. So in a way, this disorder that is very stigmatized is actually curable, if I can use that word.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hmm.
And I think it's important to know it's not just for BPD. It helps depression.
It helps everything.
Yeah, I think honestly, DBT should be a mandated, like, short group, like, I don't know, 6-week group, I think might be, like, enough to teach the basics in high schools. I think it is required.
I agree. Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
amazing to have that in high school? So
Yeah.
give some examples of how you would work with a client on emotional regulation skills. Like what would you recommend?
Okay. So let me think about this. So if I look at it from the DBT framework, part of the emotional regulation what you do in between the waves, right? And a lot of it has to do with daily maintenance activities. Like, so there's pleased, it's an acronym. I did it again. Okay, so P is like physical health. L depends on what who's defining it, could be list out your strengths and resources or challenges. E is eating every day. A is avoiding drugs and alcohol and marijuana, if you don't think those are the same thing. S is sleep. And then E is exercise, and then D is daily. I know there's like some different opinions on the internet. That's how I was trained, okay? But it's basically saying like in order for you to actually stay as regulated as possible, you need a regular schedule
Yeah.
where you eat at the same time or eat enough throughout the day, sleep enough, like avoid drugs and alcohol and things like that. So I think that's like oftentimes the first thing I go to with people
Yeah.
because people aren't doing that, whether they have a diagnosis or not. People aren't sleeping right, they're not eating right, things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so crucial. And I read about social rhythm therapy too, where
Mhm,
it's so important for people to have a schedule that's, like you said, at least during the week, that's very regular in
mhm,
terms of waking time, exercise, like you said, nutrition. And I think people just don't think in their minds that it's that important.
mhm.
And without that, they're going to be some level. I mean, sleep is the number one, right? If we don't get enough sleep, then we're compromised. But how much that keeps you regulated emotionally.
Yeah. Regardless of your diagnosis, whether it's physical health or mental health, if you're not getting enough sleep, your symptoms are worse.
Yeah.
Just hands down.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a diagnosis, it's already going to be worse. Your whole life's going to be worse. Particularly if you have, for instance, bipolar disorder. If you're not sleeping, you're going to be going up and
Yeah.
down. Like there's no way escaping that. That sleep is the fundamental.
Yeah, but even having these rhythms, it's like your brain has to work harder when someone has no routines, let's say,
Yeah.
and they're waking up and they're like, "What should I do today?" And when you have things scheduled that are regular, it allows you to kind of work through the day with ease.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's a really critical one.
Yeah. So I think, I even take to the point like eat at the same time as much as you can, sleep at the same time. Like there's so much research that the more predictable your activities and rhythm are, the better you're focused, you're
Yeah,
better your mood, the better your sleep, your attitude, and everything.
yeah,
And it's very important with ADHD as well. So keep that in mind.
yeah. And then what about the mindfulness? So, like, what do you recommend to clients when it comes to mindfulness?
Okay. So there is there's a simple explanation for mindfulness that's on the internet that I think is not good enough. It's very much like, oh yeah, coping skills, focus on your breathing, meditate. Those are all very, very, very important. However, true mindfulness goes beyond that, that it is a mindset. It is a mindset change, not just focusing on the present, but also being more aware of
Yeah,
yourself. Because the more you aware of yourself, your body, the situations around you, the people, environment, that's just better. It's about being non-judgmental, like being an observer. Like, hey, I'm having a panic attack right now versus immersing it like, oh my God, it's more of like a stepping aside and be like, yeah, I am having anxiety, versus like I'm anxious or like I'm gonna die or whatever. It's just being an observer and being non-judgmental towards yourself and other people will definitely keep you more regulated. And the last thing I would say is also being accepting, primarily like, what can I change? If I can't change it, am I going to sit here and think about it over and try to change something I can change? Which in
the radical
DBT,
acceptance. I love
yeah,
that word. Radical
yeah,
acceptance is huge.
yeah,
Well, and I like that idea of instead of saying like I am depressed, maybe you could say depression is present.
mhm,
So that's a little bit more of an observer of it rather
yeah,
than identity
yeah.
is engulfed in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's why I encourage people if actually notice any stigma, like working a lot with people with very severe schizophrenia, bipolar, schizoaffective. I remember in a DBT group, I brought up recovery language and I said, like, yeah, there's a difference between saying I'm bipolar versus I have bipolar, is that it's not who you are, it's not your identity. It doesn't determine you, it doesn't dictate you, it's just a
Yeah.
condition you have. And it's interesting because with clinicians, I don't know how much success I've had with recovery language, but with clients, like it's like a light bulb goes off. Like, oh
It's
yeah,
huge. Yeah, because the label can also, they put themselves in a box rather than thinking of themselves as individuals, unique. I mean, every label nobody fits in a perfect, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that. Okay, talk about the interpersonal relationships because one of the aspects I love of DBT is that piece of, again, how do you work with moving out of that black and white when you're relating to people? Because
Yeah.
that is what causes a lot of
Yeah.
problems in relationships, right?
Yeah. People are triggering. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. People are
Feeling.
triggering. I can speak English. I'm smart. You already established that, right? Just kidding. I'm humble. Anyway, um, let's see. So I would say, one big thing working with people who either have borderline or like, are in therapy with interpersonal relationships. And it's not for everyone, but frequently they are in a relationship that could be classified as not entirely healthy, that does have these triggers. And so a big part of it is not being like, you should leave him or, oh my God, she's terrible or whatever, because that stuff doesn't really work. It's just kind of sitting with the person,
Yeah.
and motivational interviewing is really good. It's like a neutral way of just kind of having the person think about it and asking guided questions versus you telling the person what to do, and just having them like sit on it, and be like, if you want to think more, how about this week you watch this? And so like I don't want to say I have a great track record or whatever. I feel like a lot of times when I kind of start talking with someone and they're in this very dysfunctional relationship, over time they do build the insight, and then
Yeah.
they'll leave or like they'll figure out something else. And so that's kind of for people who are already in a negative relationship, is trying to sit with it to help build insight and educate them at the same time, which is kind of like a weird art thing that like I wish I could articulate better, or maybe they're my
I
secret.
think you did great. Yeah. I think it's that idea of, when people get triggered, they sometimes take action right away.
Oh yeah.
And they can destroy a relationship. And so I always tell clients, when there's a level of intensity, you want to do some of the emotional regulation.
Hmm.
It's good to sleep on it before you respond to anyone
Oh,
and try to get back into a regulated state before you communicate because people don't realize how extreme the thoughts become when you're in an active trigger.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
later on, they're able to think about it differently, but not in the moment, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't make decisions when you're depressed or you're angry or something. So there's an app. I'm not sponsored by them, but they should sponsor me. I don't know if you want me to share it. It's like a
Sure. Yeah.
meditation app called Balance.
I've
It
heard
is.
that.
I've tried a lot of these things, and like, I had someone really important in my life be like, you need to try this app, and like to give you an idea, it has like 10-day plans, and it has like singles, like, oh, you're anxious, listen to this. You're having trouble focusing, or you're confident, listen to this. And then the 10-day sleep plans are stuff like sleep and meditation and relaxation. And I've had insomnia since I was 7 years old. And I did the 10-day sleep plan and I sleep way better.
Wow.
And the thing about it is that when it teaches you, it doesn't just do the exercise, it provides like education. Like, oh, I didn't know that if I am like haven't slept in a lot. I used to just sleep in one day and think it's better, but it's like, no, sleep a little bit more across multiple days, and that's how you make up for sleep debt. I was like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so it's just like something that also doing it so often, it's like, okay, if I'm upset, rather than call someone and expect them to regulate me, I do this app and like then I feel calmer. And if I want to call someone, it's more problem solving versus me like expecting other people to calm me down, which is something that's pretty noticeable in a lot of people who go to therapy and probably outside of therapy too.
Yeah. That's a great point. Okay. Are there any other pieces that we want to give examples for that I missed? I mean, one of the things I love about DBT is also that opposite action.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So why don't you explain what that is?
Okay,
Too?
so I hope I'm gonna explain this right, because I've definitely seen different ways. But what I tell people is that opposite action is that when you're doing something that's not desirable, you think of the opposite and you immediately do it. You do not think about whether you're gonna do it or not. So it's
Ah,
like, okay, you're lying in bed and you're depressed, right? Okay, what's the opposite? Go for a walk. Do it. You don't need to think about it, because if you think about it, you're going to
sabotage.
yeah, you're gonna be like, "You know what? Actually, I don't want to because of whatever your brain feels like telling you today."
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think it's really helpful. I mean,
yeah,
for depressed clients, it's like just get your clothes on, go outside, start moving. I mean, just even if you're so tired you can't picture doing that, just take a slow walk around the block. Like
yeah.
it's better than laying in bed all day.
Yeah, and I've definitely been so depressed, like, one point I was, like, in bed 18 hours a day because I was so depressed and, like, taking some medicine that wasn't even working, so it's like, I do empathize when it's like yeah, but at a certain point, it's sort of like, if you could just, I think when I tell people and when I learn opposite to action, it's sort of like, "Oh, I gotta do this, boom, boom." It's like I didn't have time to really do that if I was actually
Yeah.
physically able to. So I think that's like a really important thing to try because I know it sounds like, "Oh, I can't do that." Well, I mean, try it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's a good one.
I
Well,
think
yeah, any other things you think?
yeah. So one thing is I don't really think that people should be teaching DBT if they don't know about it. They just see a handout online and they print it and talk about it. Because I think it does turn people off from DBT. I think there's also enough free education on DBT out there if you want to learn about it. And I can also say that even if someone, I know the technical fidelity is you do DBT individual, group, have like phone coaching and stuff like that, but that's not feasible. And most of those places don't even accept insurance. But I'll give you an example of one time that I can very clearly explain, like, yeah, it does make a difference for people to know. And that is the Dear Man that I mentioned. So it's an acronym that's basically saying like, describe the situation, express how you feel, assert yourself. And so it's very much just a formula for being able to make a request where there's no emotion, there's no subjectivity, it's just the facts. And so it's like no one's gonna hear Dear Man and memorize it. But I was in a treatment center where pretty much everyone was very severe in their addiction, and almost all of them were from Oklahoma. And by the end of it, they're like, "I didn't know you could talk to people that way. I didn't know
Mhm.
that was the way people talk to each other." So it's like, it doesn't matter if they don't memorize it. I told them, "You can Google it." Like, I've definitely written emails where I've Googled Dear Man and then done it. Don't get ChatGPT to do it for you. Trust me, you don't want to. It's gonna hallucinate something weird. You're gonna lose your job. Trust me. But anyway, that concept of being able to explain it like properly, which I think therapists can definitely do with training, even if it's just looking up something online. I think that can be transformative.
Yeah. And I think it's really well practiced in groups. I think we underestimate the power of group therapy. And I've had a lot of clients find groups like, can we put anything in the show notes that you know of that they could search for groups locally?
Psychology Today. There you can actually find groups on there. I currently have a DBT group waiting list.
Oh,
Not
great.
to plug myself, but if you're in California, I would be able to serve you if you want to check that out. But if you are looking for just groups on their own, you can go to Psychology Today. If you're looking for intensive DBT treatment, there are a lot of private clinics that accept private pay
Yeah.
or like out of network, but there are some clinics that do have insurance coverage for people that really need it.
A lot of the
And so,
inpatient and outpatient programs include the DBT groups, right?
yeah, yeah, in theory, yeah.
Yeah,
But
in theory.
I know I definitely worked at places where it was called a DBT group, but it wasn't really led by someone that knew
Was
DBT.
trained. Okay,
So,
just like everything else. Yeah.
yeah,
Find someone who's trained
yeah,
and learn these skills. I mean, they're really powerful. And I think they help the client also take ownership for taking action
yeah.
and managing their own mental health. And so
Oh,
I'm
I
yeah,
have
go ahead. One more.
so if you're also looking for free resources, there's a website. It's either dialecticalbehavioraltherapy.com or dialecticalbehavioraltherapy.org. Free videos summarizing DBT entirely. There's an app called DBT Coach, though I think you kind of need that in conjunction with the therapist because they're going to ask you, "Oh, did you use distracted accepts and Dear Man?" And if you don't know what that is, you're really confused. But there's a lot of, like, really accessible stuff out there for DBT as well. So it's like, you don't have to be tied to a therapy room or need, like, to pay for that stuff. Because if you're able to watch some videos and do some worksheets, you can get it done. There are also books as well. There's a lot of workbooks for DBT
Yeah.
that you could do on your own as well.
Yeah, we'll put all those in the show notes and your information if they want to join your group.
Sure.
But I think this was really helpful. I mean, this is again another modality that I don't think people know that much about that's really, really powerful. And so I love how you broke it down and make it easy to understand. And hopefully people can, like you said, learn more about it online or join a group or find a therapist that does it because it's really, really useful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
and sharing your expertise. And we will see you next week on Catalyst for Healing.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.